Hi, I'm Dana Brigman. I'm a wellness educator for dogs and a dog trainer. I'm here to help you get proactive with your dog's health and natural wellness to save you money on vet visits, improve your dog's quality of life, and fully enjoy your well-behaved dog. Over the years, I sought many answers for why dogs were struggling with so many behavioral and health issues. I found some amazing answers in nutrition and natural wellness. My goal today is to leverage every available modality to help us achieve long-term results and a thriving, healthy, happy dog. Nothing brings me more joy than bringing a dog back into balance and giving that joy to his family. I'm Dana Brigman of the Canine Coach Carolinas. I hope you will enjoy this podcast series designed to help you learn more about nutrition, natural wellness, and behavior for your dog. Good morning, everybody. It's Dana Brigman of the Canine Coach Carolinas and my favorite Dr. Barb Fox. She's here, and today on our podcast, we're going to be spending a little bit of time talking about using essential oils for behavioral issues. And I know that I bring them into my training business when we're talking about anxiety. And that's really how I got started with oils, was trying to find calming solutions for dogs that were stressed out, nervous, anxious, and all that sort of stuff. But interestingly enough, we can take them into even aggression type topics. And I see a lot of veterinarians talking about using that in their practice. So we're going to draw on Dr. Barb's expertise to find out more about that. So welcome, Dr. Barb. Please
Thanks,
say
Dana.
hi and introduce your website, and then let's just start chatting.
All right. I'm so glad to be back, Dana. Thanks for inviting me on. For those of you who do not know me, I'm a holistic veterinarian in Northeast Iowa. And if you want to find out more about what my services and what I offer, you can check out my website, which is Barb Fox, F-O-X, DVM, like Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. So it's barbfoxdvm.com. It's very
Awesome.
Simple. And
yeah. She has a couple of great classes out there on essential oils for horses, cats, dogs. She's got some nutrition content out there that you can take and learn how to make dog food or cat food. I don't know if we make horse food. Is there such a thing as making horse food?
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, not really, Dana. But there are a lot of things that people need to be aware of as far as equine nutrition.
Exactly, of course. Yeah. Okay, so Dr. Barb, let's just dive right in. And when we talk about essential oils for behavior, what does that mean to you, and how do you bring that to life in your veterinary practice?
Well, Dana, I think it's pretty simple that there are a lot of essential oils, and I've got a whole boatload sitting right beside me here, mm-hmm. that have the ability to calm and relax the brain. And because our animals can't communicate verbally with us, they can communicate telepathically, but they can't oftentimes tell us what they want, and we're going to get it right away. I think that the essential oils are a very, very important aspect of behavior training, or even getting them to cooperate better at home. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the things, especially in the vet clinic. I actually fill in at a conventionally run vet clinic in a large town just about an hour away from me, and I am allowed to do holistic treatments there. So we're adding to our essential oil protocol. Yeah, excellent is right. And I can do a lot of things that I couldn't do, in a regular practice. So they want to have me as their kind of their alternative expert. So I can give you a great example of how, I guess, let me back up and go over how essential oils actually can work to calm the brain. Okay. So let's just take a bottle of lavender, for example. I've got one sitting right here. And lavender is one that we always think about for sleeping or, just relaxing and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. The constituents in lavender, when it is either applied topically, like right on the palm or the pulse points on the wrist, or even on the neck, or breathed in, what happens is the tiny molecules of those essential oils soak into the skin, get into the bloodstream, and go right to what we call the limbic area. This happens when you breathe it into the limbic area of the brain, which is the pineal gland. Also, we're looking at not only the pineal gland, but we're looking at the hippocampus, the amygdala, and there's one other structure there. It's not coming right to my mind right now. But when we have a memory, let's say we have a memory, let's say that we got stung by a bee. We have that physical pain. We also have the emotional memory of that bee coming and attacking us, or the dog has that kind of memory. Then those memories are stored intracellularly. And that's really crazy. I mean, I couldn't believe this at first when I first heard this, but we store emotions and thoughts and feelings in our cells. If we don't get those out, then they remain there forever, and they can cause problems, even physical problems down the road. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the thing about essential oils is they work extremely quickly when they're breathed in or even applied topically.
Yep.
And I use them extensively. I can't think of a patient comes into the clinic where I don't use it for something.
That's
or
awesome.
Use the oils for something.
So I think we all hear about the limbic system, and everybody, especially everybody in the rescue world, or most everybody's heard about lavender for calming and stuff. You mentioned, and I say amygdala, and I may be wrong, mm-hmm. but I remember I was in a business coaching class one time, a one-on-one with somebody that I had hired as a professional business coach to advance my career. And he said to me, your amygdala gets hijacked. And I'm like,
interesting.
What does that mean? And so I really had to start to think about it, but I recognize that, and still to this day, there are certain things that hijack my amygdala. And it means for me that something has triggered me, and I literally just freeze. I cannot even speak words. It's like I'm trying to get them out, and I just can't. And it comes when I am really frustrated or really emotional about something. And rather than being able to say to somebody, you've upset me, or I don't appreciate that, or whatever those words might be, I cannot form words. And interestingly enough, that's even been tied back to my throat chakra over the years. And so it's fascinating how all of this stuff comes together. But to think about our dogs in that same venue or same light, if they can't express what's happening, then they may act out. Mine is to go silent. Theirs may be to show up in a different way. That's fascinating to me.
It is very fascinating.
So let's talk about some of the dogs that come in, and, you know, a lot of dogs, when they come to the vet's office, are very nervous to be there, or they've been and they hated it. And so they've imprinted that it's going to be a bad experience again the next time they show. Some dogs even have a bad experience getting in the car because they think they're going to the vet's office. What can we do about those things?
Well, I think it's important, Dana, to let people know that if they are going to look for a product that's going to be fast, safe, and effective, they need to be looking at Young Living essential oils. And why I say Young Living, I'm just going to put that out there, is because that is the company that has the highest standards, the purest products ever. And I was a huge skeptic, Dana, when I first started out with Young Living, because I heard so much hype about it, and I thought, oh, that's just advertisements, Hollywooded, blah, blah, blah. And so I used 4 or 5 different companies' oils. And either I wasn't getting the results I wanted, or my animal patients were experiencing some kind of side effects that I didn't like. I kept coming back to Young Living. And now I've been with the company for 14 and a half years, and I'm just thrilled to have their products. So quality is the main consideration. But let's say like you're going to get your dog into a crate, if it's a small dog, or into the car if it's a large dog. And that dog has some apprehension about, like you said, getting in the car for the first point. It's really important because the dog mamas out there, they need to know this. Even if you don't physically express your anxiety, everybody has anxiety about taking their pet to the vet. And I'm the same way. If I have to take one of my outside kitties in to get spayed or neutered because I don't have a physical practice myself anymore, I have to put that animal in the cat carrier. And there's always this anxiety, especially when they're verbalizing. Say like your dog is whining or it's barking, and a lot of people tell me this. I'm getting way ahead of myself, but a lot of people tell me that their dog knows when they make that last turn where they're going, and all of a sudden they shake, they pant, they whine. It's a great idea for mom to put the oils on herself,
right?
Like just rub some in the palm, rub it on her hair and all over her body, and then do the same thing for the dog. Anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes before you're even thinking about getting that car ready to go. And then once those oils get that brain and that psyche kind of settle down, then you can get into the car, have that ride to the vet's office, and it's not a big deal. If it's a long trip, say like you've got over 20, 25 minutes to get to the vet clinic, what I suggest is people take a cotton ball and just pour a few drops of either peace and calming or stress away or lavender and put it in the crate or in the car with the dog. You can even buy these little travel diffusers that run on a battery and has a little felt pad. You just saturate that little felt pad, and then this little fan spins and it makes your car smell great. And then it also calms your animals.
Have you seen the little silicone bottle holders? Sherry LaMarche is the first one that I saw one with. It's a little silicone bottle holder. They make a 5 milliliter and a 15, and it's got a little carabiner clip on it, and you can just clip it right on the crate door.
Oh, I haven't seen those.
Yeah, and so I don't do that with a full bottle, right? I'll take an empty bottle and put a couple of drops of whatever and hang that open on the crate or in the back of the car or wherever as we're traveling. So that's another option.
Great. That is a good idea. I love that. So when they get to the vet clinic, unfortunately, here's the bad side, that a lot of veterinarians do not believe in essential oils, or they even say, hey, they're dangerous. Don't use them on your pets.
Right.
And I just like to have a 2x. No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't hear that.
No, you didn't hear that. No, but I mean, it's really frustrating for me having, as a veterinary professional, using these for 14 and a half years and seeing the great results we get, and then having that veterinarian that you take your dog to say, nah, shouldn't use those, they're toxic, they're going to harm your animal. There is some truth to that. Let me back up. We've gone over this before, but just to reiterate that there are some bad oils on the market, and those oils can harm animals because they have chemicals in the distillation process. They can also be damaged by high heat and high pressure when these oils are distilled. But mainly it's chemical adulterants that are added to either extend the volume of the oil or to act as a preservative or whatever. Those oils, those cheap adulterated oils, are the ones that can harm animals. But that's why I stress you've got to look at quality. So,
well, and in that same discussion, I know in the group this week, I made a post about it where we see them often taking out additional constituents, that fractional distillation. And so we won't call that necessarily adulterated, right? I mean, there's nothing added to it, but there's a bunch taken out that may make it far less effective over, in that moment.
Yeah. A good example is clove oil. If you take out one constituent, you don't have clove oil anymore. You've got a toxic substance. And I believe it's eugenol that has to have some kind of constituent with it to make it not toxic. Wow. So we could go on for hours about the adulteration, but for the most part, if we were using Young Living, you are doing a great service to your animals.
Awesome. So pets in the car, headed to the vet's office. And where are we in this process to help them out?
Well, I just think that by the diffusing or having the little silicone thing, the bottle holder that you said, it's going to create this nice relaxing atmosphere. So once the dog gets to the vet clinic, gets out of the car, you should see a difference immediately, with the less agitation, less anxiety, less whining, panting, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm sorry. I tell people too, if your dog's really that afraid of just going to the vet, that you need to do some desensitization work, and you use the oils to bring the edge down in that process, but you go to the vet and get a treat and leave. And you go to the vet and you get a treat and you leave. So that we're starting to help them understand that it's not that imprint that they're remembering. It's not the last time I went, it was all this fear and terror, but it can start to be really reworked in their mind.
Yeah, and the clinic that I fill in for, they have a really good way of working. They'll even have say we've got a new dog. And if the client has the time, we say it's a great idea if you can just bring Fifi in and just walk around the clinic, let her sniff the toys and the treats. And then she'll get maybe some peanut butter, some organic peanut butter on a fudgesicle stick, just to make it pleasant.
Right.
And then next time she comes in, it's not going to be that big of a deal. We've had very aggressive dogs for nail trims and we never muzzle them. We have a jar of peanut butter sitting there. We have one of the assistants feeding the peanut butter while the tech slips in from behind. Somebody else is petting the dog. We clip the toenails and the dog doesn't even know that anything's been done.
Right.
But it's when the dog is, say like German Shepherds, for example, they're very skittish and they hate restraint. You know that. And when they come in, if they're immediately muzzled and held down, what does that dog remember?
Exactly.
So one of the things I would say is you have the option of shopping around. You don't have to stick with one veterinary clinic. If you don't like the way your dog is handled, then shop for something else.
Yeah, and that for grooming as well. I saw a picture the other day on TikTok, and I scrolled through TikTok for the cute dog pictures. But there was a dog laid out on a veterinary table. It looked like he was dead, and I thought, why are they showing us this? And it went on to say that they had sedated him to do his grooming. And I'm like, oh my, there has to be a better way. Even if it takes a while to desensitize and to build him up. And, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't imagine every couple of months sedating a dog that deeply just to give him a haircut.
Right. I just had a new client in that same clinic last week that came in, and she had heard that I did essential oils in the practice, and that I was a holistic practitioner. So she brings her little, I think it was a Shih Tzu cross of some kind. And I knock on the door. I always knock on the door just so I'm not surprising the animal when I come in. And she had the dog sitting on the table. It's about a 9-pound dog. And the dog immediately ran to the side of the table, wanted to eat me.
Oh dear.
And she goes, watch out, watch out, watch out. She'll bite you. She'll bite you. And so I just did the thing. I just ignored the dog and went around, and we talked for 20 minutes, the client and I did. And she said, this dog has been in this state of mind for anything. She says, we've been kicked out of 4 grooming practices, and we can't do toenails. And she has to be sedated every month for her groom. I'm like, oh my gosh. So it turns out, as I got to talking with her, this woman herself was riddled with anxiety. She and her husband had 2 businesses. It was extremely stressful. She ended up selling part of the business so that they could have more time together. But it turns out that the husband hated the dog. And so here we have the little dog trying to protect mom. And it kind of just morphed into this chronic long-term aggression if anybody tried to get between mom and the dog. And so I said, you know what, we're not going to do anything. She didn't come in for anything except to talk to me and see if there was something she could do to calm her dog down. So I pulled out Valor, and what I did was I uncapped it, and I let the little dog I didn't shove it in his face. I just held it probably this far away, and the dog went like this. Okay, that's not the oil we need.
Didn't like that one.
No. And I picked up, I don't have Peace and Calming with me, but I picked up Stress Away. I did Peace and Calming, and I did the Stress Away. Held it out here. Little dog went, nope. Okay. So this dog, I'm thinking, a lot of times I use my intuition, but let me find my oil here. This is my absolute favorite, what I call emotional oil blend. It's called Release.
I love that one too.
So releasing anxiety, releasing irritability, releasing past traumas, whatever you want to focus on releasing or having the animal release. So I opened up the bottle of Release, held it out here, and this is what that little dog did. Comes up and tried to eat the bottle out of my hand. So I sent 40 drops home with her. I told her how to use this, and I'm going to check back next week to see how things are going.
Yep. So interestingly, I had a very similar situation this week. A client called me for training for a dog that they had adopted from the shelter that had been in a hoarding or breeding scenario, very emaciated when they came in from the shelter, afraid of everything, but brave enough to approach me, which they were surprised by. But I was covered in essential oils. I cheat when I go in. I have them like I've rubbed them on my hands. I may have them at my ankles or my knees, you know. I cheat. And so this dog kept approaching me, and the mother was just completely surprised. And I said, you know, part of it is she's sort of checking out these scents. And I had a little box of essential oils with me and did exactly the same thing you did. Pulled out a couple, let her sniff, pulled out a couple, let her sniff. And she just kept coming to check them out. And she kept coming to see what they were. There were not any that she's like, I don't want any part of that. But she was very receptive to taking that in. And as you're talking about, that's hitting that limbic system and helping to start change the scenario a bit.
Exactly. And it's amazing. I really would encourage these vet clinics to be diffusing in their clinic. So the minute the dog walks in, one of my good friends, Susan Albright in Chicago, she's a veterinarian, has a holistic practice over there. She has diffusers all over her clinic. And so the first thing that a dog will smell when it walks into the clinic is either Peace and Calming or cedarwood or some of the other calming oils. And then they have them in the exam rooms, back in the treatment area. Even she uses them in her surgical suite when the dog is waking up. So it comes up with a nice, instead of kind of a rough recovery, just a nice smooth awakening. So, yeah. And so the other thing I was going to say, I had another story here about a dog going back to toenail trims, because there's a lot of dogs that are phobic about having their feet touched. There's one dog that's been coming to this particular clinic for several years, and it is one that has to be muzzled because you can't even approach it. I mean, it's just crazy. And so one of the head techs came to me and she says, Barb, is there anything that you can do with these essential oils? Because we really don't want to have to keep muzzling this dog. And to even get it a muzzle on, we have to do something, you know, the dog doesn't respond well to ACE promazine, which is a sedative.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
And they don't like doing that. They don't like doing that. So anyway, I pulled out vetiver, gentle baby, valor, lavender, and I believe maybe Roman chamomile. And I basically ran out to the car. The dog was fine in the car. It's just when it got out of the car, you couldn't get near it. So went in the car, put all the oils on. And I mean, I just pretty much slathered this poor dog with I shouldn't say poor. It was a very fortunate dog to have the oils on.
Right.
And then they took it into the clinic, and the head tech said, you would not believe this. She goes, that was the smoothest toenail trim this dog has ever had in his life. And so they're going to keep doing that. And this is one of the things that the practice owner saw too, and was really impressed with that. So that's why I'm allowed to buy several $100s worth of oils every few weeks to keep in the clinic.
That's fantastic. I love that they're being open to that, and your clients are seeing these possibilities. That's amazing. So
I forgot to, hey Dina, I forgot, this is an audio only presentation, correct?
No,
or
you're
is this a
recorded. Your
visual?
video's on.
Okay, so I was going to say for the people that are listening, when I offered that oil to that little dog that was really aggressive, what the dog did is smelled it and then turned its head away immediately. The oil, the release oil that it really liked, just was drawn to it and was sniffing like crazy and got so close it was going to lick the bottle or try to get the bottle in its mouth. So just want to clarify that.
Yeah. So to your point, on the podcast, they'll only have the audio, but if we put it on YouTube or Facebook, they'll see a lovely face. Am I crazy here today? So,
hey, it's so humid here. You can't do anything with my hair today. So
it's interesting because the thing anxiety makes sense to me. Stress makes sense to me. Fear makes sense to me with the essential oils. And then every once in a while, I'll see in an oily group, somebody say, my dog is aggressive. And that I know has a lot of meanings to a lot of people. I think there are aggressive behaviors in a certain scenario, like getting their toenails trimmed. If you had a dog that was truly an aggressor, like there were fighting in the home, or he hated every friendly stranger that he came to meet, or they were worried about having company come over, what kinds of things would you do in those scenarios?
Well, first of all, I'm a big proponent of making the dog stay in a safe place, in its secure place, and letting the people come into the home first so that the dog is not being territorial aggressive at that point. In that same scenario, I'd be diffusing oils around that dog before it was introduced to the strangers or the company. That's one thing that you can do. Is just very common sense. But a lot of people, and I've come into many homes. I used to have a house call practice. I'd come into many homes where the dog is at the door in front of the client, and you can't even get in the door because they're wanting to either jump on you or eat you. Yeah. And so
that's not just the aggressive dogs. That can be the cute littles, right?
Right.
That are just different.
Right.
And yeah, nobody likes it.
Right. And so having an oily home where you're diffusing in several different rooms so that there's a constant inhalation of these therapeutic grade, medical grade essential oils that can calm everything. How many homes are chaotic, tension, people are going this way, that way, work schedules are crazy, people come home, they're stressed, and our animals pick up on that.
Yeah.
If we can keep that home an oily home, hey, it's a win-win for everybody, right?
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
I give, I love to bring the essential oils in it. And a lot of times I think when people call for training, that's where their mind is. And they're not always receptive yet to the essential oils, or they're not convinced that played a big role until they see some of these dramatic things like we're talking about. But I love the pairing of those things. But when we give new behavior, when we give you I call it a choreography, a new something to do, and we change what the brain thinks it's supposed to be doing, and we slow it down, and it has to think about, what am I supposed to be doing now? And the people are not reacting in the same way because the dog is suddenly different, and the dog's different because the people are different. Then we can start to peel back the layers and get these things under control.
Absolutely. I think that's,
yeah. So I mentioned like when two dogs are fighting, and my go-to oil in that scenario is Harmony. Have you any stories or experience with Harmony?
I don't personally have any stories about Harmony, but yes, when the dogs are fighting, acceptance is another one, especially if you're rehoming an animal. But Harmony, if you think of having a harmonious energy in the home or the kennel or whatever, that's what Harmony does.
Yeah.
So a lot of these oils are named for things that, for example, stress away. I mean, gosh. The other one, this is a big one I like, is inner child.
Yes.
Because our dogs are our kids, right? And if you if the puppy's had any trauma, say even leaving their litter mates to go to a new home when they've been around their brothers and their sisters and they've been playing, and all of a sudden they're in a one dog household. They've got some emotional trauma. And the other one that people don't think a lot about, Dana, is Sarah. Now this stands for ritual abuse. Okay.
Right.
It actually is sexual and ritual abuse.
Right.
It's used for children a lot. But if you think about when we have a breeding facility, those dogs have no choice who they mate with. They don't have a choice whether they want to have a litter of puppies or not. I mean, I'm thinking of the mental and emotional part of the dog's psyche. If they've had any kind of trauma, any kind of abuse, any kind of neglect, or if they've been in a puppy mill situation, Sarah is really good for releasing those things.
Agreed.
Okay.
I use inner child quite a lot for dogs that don't know how to be dogs. And I see that a lot in my training business.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Can you explain
that? Well, they are so apprehensive sometimes, or they can't be left alone, or they're just Velcroed to their human. Now, that could lean into isolation distress or separation anxiety. But these dogs, when you take them outside, they don't know how to relax in the sun. They don't know how to go and roll in the grass and go, I feel so good. They don't know how to play. They don't know how to be that free and joyful spirit that we think of with our happy-go-lucky dogs, because maybe they've never touched grass. Maybe they've been 20 out of 24 hours in a crate all the time, or, I mean, I've seen it all. And they just don't know how to be their authentic selves anymore.
Correct. Yeah.
And
it's really sad.
Yeah. I start dripping essential oil on them in my training programs, especially when we were doing the board and train and we had a lot of these rescue dogs. And to see them peel back the layers and you find them laid out in the sun, belly up, and you're like, thank God, thank God and sometimes that's all we want for our dogs, is to just not be this stuck, unhappy being, and to find a little bit of joy. And so joy is another one that I pull out a lot. So is surrender. I use a lot of surrender. Oh,
yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And the name says it all. So if you're like really confused on what you need, we have those reference guides, but you can also just look at the name. I mean, valor stands for courage. And so can we talk a little bit about thunderstorm and firework anxiety?
1,000% is the weekend for it. And it's thundering out. Yeah. Thundering outside my window now. And I now have 2 dogs laying under my desk who would otherwise be on the couch.
Yeah. So when we think about those two, we think about loud noises, but there's a big difference between storms and fireworks. Yeah. The dogs feel, and all animals feel, the pressure changes in the air. They feel the electricity well before, even hours before a storm hits. And so this is the time. We don't want to wait until 10 minutes before the storm sirens go off or before we had a big lightning show. We want to start hours before by diffusing around the home or the kennel, getting these nice calming oils in. And if you want to incorporate thunder shirts or any other kind of soothing music, whatever it takes to bring that anxiety level down. But we can't wait because once those anxiety, what do we call them? The anxiety level starts to escalate, we get to a point and there's no return at that point. We might be able to alleviate a little bit with those oils, but it's just like a child with a seizure disorder. And I went through this with my daughter. When her agitation would start to escalate, we've got to get it stopped before it gets to a certain point. The agitation is part of the brain misfiring, and then the seizure would develop. So same thing with the dogs. If we can keep that anxiety level down well before we get to that point of no return, we're going to have a much easier time of getting that dog to settle down. I'm not opposed to, if they want to stay in a closet, that's fine, but just don't diffuse essential oils in a closed up room. Okay. That's really important. And a lot of people don't get that, even though the essential oils are safe and effective, we can do too much. And if they can't get a fresh air source, I mean, I've done that myself. Like, if I'm diffusing like thieves, for example, and I'm really sensitive to rosemary, which is stimulating, then I'll kind of feel a little bit jittery. And so if you think about your dogs the same way. The other thing is with fireworks, we don't have that pressure change. We don't have the electricity. All of a sudden, we've got this huge bang. And that's
it's
just
not just one, it's this rapid fire. You know, 'cause people ask me about they ask about like gun dogs, and I'm like, you're not out there shooting off for 40 minutes. You know? You might shoot once.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And most dogs that, I mean, like, I don't know how to say this. Most of the dogs that run away don't want to ever come back home. Right. And there is a tremendous amount of dogs that escape the house or break through a window. I've even seen dogs that break through a window to get away from that. And it's really sad. Yeah.
And, you know, I'm down here at the beach, and a lot of people vacation for the 4th of July at the beach, and they lose their dogs because the dog's not in its home environment, and they're sitting out in a strange environment or whatever, and the boom boom start, and the dog's like, I'm out of here. And I mean, I've literally had people call me and say, she's gone. You know, my clients, she's gone. So secure collars, updated microchips, keep them inside, play some calming music, diffuse a whole bunch of essential oils, and the whole bit. So I know we're talking about oils, Dr. Barb, but that triggers a question that I have. We saw recently Rodney Habib and Karen Becker post about fireworks, because it's that time of year, about the cortisol level increase that happens with the fireworks are exploding for our animals. And I want to say it was something like an increase of 200%. I might be wrong on that statistic, but
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be either, but I'm not quite sure what the number was. Do you think cortisol would be beneficial for our dogs?
I've never used it for that, Dana, but it certainly would be something I would look into. I know that with women, you're only supposed to use it for, a few weeks at a time, and then stop and then start it up again. Yeah. It's something I haven't looked into so much, but
yeah. And so it just triggered that question for me. And I didn't know if it would be something that worked in the moment. Like if you used it that morning, would that be helpful for that night? Or would you need a couple of days of preloading? I don't know the answer to that. And then
I don't either. And yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So noodle that in your brain and let me know what you think. But the other one that I look at too is Sleep Essence, which has the valerian, the cedarwood, the lavender, and a little bit of melatonin. So I would absolutely use that one.
It's not going to hurt a thing.
Fireworks and when we know storms are coming. Yeah.
Right. And that is a capsule, so it can be slipped in a treat and down the throat.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So any other behavioral things, any magic that you've worked on the unexpected with oils? Any surprise? I know.
Did I ever tell you
about the pigs and all when that truck toppled over? But are there other stories you can share?
Did I talk about the boxer who was biting everybody in the household, and I did an emotional release with it?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. This was probably 6 or 7 years ago when I worked at a mixed animal practice in a town about 20 miles away. This dog named Cupid, a little boxer named Cupid, came in.
Cupid hated everybody. That's just wrong.
No, she was a sweet
I thought you
dog.
said she bit everybody.
No, there's a backstory here. So every time I'd seen her for probably 3-4 years for her annual checkups, and she was a sweet dog, would lick my face and never had a problem with her. And then when the owner called me a couple of years after I left that practice, she says, Barb, I need help. I'm afraid I'm going to have to put Cupid down. And I said, what? What's going on? She says, well, she bit my husband. She bit my son. She bit 2 of my son's friends.
Oh my goodness.
And I can't have that liability. And I said, what is going on? Mm-hmm. And she opened up, told me that she was leaving her husband of 25 years. And there was so much chaos in the house. And her husband was blindsided because there's a little bit more to the story, but I don't need to get into all those details. But her husband was blindsided, and the sons were very upset. They had an older son, very, very upset, and threatened to do some domestic violence in the house. And so Cupid was picking up on all this, and she had no way of dealing with it. She started biting.
Wow.
And so I said, Nan, bring her over to my office. I had a holistic office at that time, nice plush furniture and nice soft blankets. And I said, bring her over and let's do some oils. And fortunately, the owner was very into oils. She understood the spiritual side of everything. So it was easy to work with her. And I probably had, so first of all, when Cupid came into my office, I just sat on the floor cross-legged, and Nan sat on a chair, and Cupid jumped up in her lap and sat there, 55-pound boxer on her lap.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get near Cupid. She growled at me, did the little lip thing, sitting on Nan's lap. So I would hand oils to Nan and just have her hold those under Cupid's nose and let her sniff. I probably did 20 different oils. And all of a sudden, Dana, it was like a switch went off. Her eyes softened. She stood up on Nan's lap, jumped down, came over to me. I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor thinking, I hope I don't get bit.
You're like, I'm not.
She walks over. Yeah, I'm not going to move. I just had but I had the oils on me too. I held out my hands. She came over, sniffed my hands. The next thing Cupid did, she came over, curled up on my lap and laid down. And I went, oh my. And so I stopped the oils at that point, told Nan which oils she should use at home, do the same thing every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And called her, probably 2 months after that last time I'd seen her. She says, Barb, she says, it was amazing. She says, Cupid's a different dog. She said, everything's fine. She's never even threatened a snarl or a smile or anything, just she's fine. But Nan also explained, and I did in that session I had with her, even though dogs don't understand maybe words, they understand the feelings and the perception behind the words. And I just told her, I said, you are perfectly fine. You're protected. You are loved. And there's no reason to bite anybody. And Nan told her the same thing. The mom did, Nan is the mom. And the dog never bit anybody ever again. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I went this week to a new client. She called because the two very tiny little dogs, one of them might weigh 5 pounds, were terrible barkers. And I'm like, I don't know that you need obedience training, but let's see what's going on. And literally, I walked in and they're at the door barking, and we sat down, and then they would jump off for no apparent reason. The golfers you'd hear them clip a golf ball, and they'd run and bark at that. And I mean, it was just sort of chaos. And it turns out that the lady's husband had died recently, and there's a lot of emotion and a lot of build up to that passing. And so again, I've gone in, I'm covered in essential oils, and I'm letting them whiff bottles just like you're talking about. And it got really quiet, and I just kept talking to the owner, and she finally realized that they had not barked in like 20, 30, 40 minutes. She's like, I don't know what has happened here. I don't know what is going on here, but we're going to continue this. And she emailed me the next day, and she's like, they're still calm. So we're working on a whole number of things, but it is so true about the dynamics of energy around them and the players involved and how they feel our energy and our emotion and respond to that, and don't know how to express it or how to get rid of it. And the essential oils help them do that. I love it. I love it.
I do too. And if we think too, Dana, about a lot of the anxiety that the humans have, and animals pick up on that, and they blame the animals for it, I have to be very tactful in what I say, but I will bring that I will bring that to the owner's attention, saying, we need to have both of you doing these oils. We need to have both of you acknowledging that there's an energy entanglement around both of you. Yeah. And we need to separate that so that we're not affecting our animals adversely.
I like that word, energy entanglement. That makes a whole bunch of sense about how it just gets all wrapped and knotted in there. Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it happens. I mean, it happens. We can't fix it because we all have that electrical field around us, this aura, and it can either be a detriment or it can be positive. Best example I can give you is you walk into a room of strangers, somebody walks up to you, and you can feel their energy and it's maybe not so good. And you feel yourself kind of like backing off.
Yes.
Or if somebody has really positive, good energy and you guys connect, you feel yourself wanting to lean into them or walk closer and have a smile on your face. Same way with our animals. They feel that.
Yeah.
And I even have to go a little bit further than that and say that sometimes when dogs are aggressive or look at a human and start to growl, maybe that human has some kind of, I will want to say evil or demonic, but it's not a good energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's where the oils come in handy. And my husband is a great guy. He's a super guy. But he has a beard. He wears a baseball cap almost all the time. His glasses are photo grade. And he's a very alpha male, and he's got a big crease, from scowling. Okay. Yeah. Right. And what he likes to do with our animals is get right down their face and go, hi. And they're like, whoa, no, it's not that it's just his appearance, And I say, Gary, don't get right in their face. You just hand them a treat, hand them this, do something, but don't get in their face.
Right.
And so I think sometimes when people do get bitten, it's learning. You have to learn to watch the dog's body language and know that you can't just approach every dog.
100%.
Yeah.
And I see people, including the owner, the handler, the guardian, just allow far too much pressure to be put on these dogs. These dogs don't intend to be aggressive, but they feel cornered or smothered or I don't like you. And we're trying to force them to take on a greeting from a kid or an adult or whatever. And it's just too much pressure. That to me doesn't read an aggressive dog. It reads to me a dog that we did not honor what they were trying to say to us and their space and their boundaries, And so I teach a lot of clients how to read their dog and to understand they may love most people, but if they don't love that one, there is no reason to make them interact. None whatsoever.
Correct. And even at my age and having been in the veterinary practice world for 27, 28 years now, if I approach a dog on a bike trail or a walking trail, I never get in their space. I give them space. And then if the dog wants to wag its tail, looks like it wants to stop and be petted, I'll ask the owner, is it okay to pet? I don't know that animal.
Yeah.
I can read their body language, but it might be too late. And like you said, honoring their space. I'm not going to just, wouldn't like anybody to show their hand in my face or hand like, hey, go ahead and shake my hand. I demand it.
Exactly.
And that's kind of like
and
what
I
we do
describe
with
it to a
certain
lot
dogs.
of people like, if I came running at you going, oh my God, I'm going to hug and kiss you, which I hate, by the way, I don't want it for myself. What would you think? You would be like, oh, this woman is crazy, right? She's lost her mind and I don't want any part of that. And you're going to sort of recoil. And our dogs are doing the same thing. You're just missing it. You're just missing their signals. So.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is fantastic. Are there any other pieces of essential oils in your little collection you've laid out there or behavioral topics that we haven't covered yet that you want to close on?
I'll just admit behavior isn't one of my fortes just because I refer everybody to a behaviorist. But I wanted to talk a little bit about vetiver and valerian oils. Now, I don't have any valerian. I'm out of valerian right now, but vetiver and valerian together, holy moly. I mean, if you want to get a dog in a state of total relaxation, almost like to the point of falling asleep, these two oils are very sedating. So if you got that really aggressive, or I shouldn't say aggressive, anxious dog, one that has a lot of phobias, then those two will probably give you a lot of relief. Now I can tell you a child story about cedarwood, because if you think about children and animals, there's not a lot of difference except in their body makeup, their physical makeup. Okay. But when the Joplin tornado hit Joplin in, I don't know what year that was. It was about 7 years ago. I had some friends that lived in St. Charles, which is not too far from Joplin, and they had a tornado that came very close to their house. The grandmother was babysitting the two grandchildren. I think they were 4 and 8 years of age. And the girls heard the roar of the tornado. Their house was not damaged terribly, but they had some trees that fell very close to the house. And they were just traumatized. And so the little girl, the littlest one, the 4-year-old, had night terrors for several months after that. And Janet was using like peace and calming, stress away, and nothing was really keeping those night terrors down. But she decided to try cedarwood. And she says cedarwood was the ticket. She says it put it on her feet, and she slept. She never had another night terror after that. So a lot of times, I'm just going to put this out there, it is a combination of using different things, finding out what works. It's an experiment. There's no right or wrong way. And we just kind of have those reference guides, and we kind of know what we could start with. But then it's a, if something isn't working, like Gary Young used to say, if you go 2 days and something's not working, try something else.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, when we talk about essential oils in this way, like we're doing today, they'll get one and it might not be the right one, or they might not have used it long enough. They're looking for some of these big releases like you and I've been talking about with the boxer, for example. That was magic in just a few minutes. And it doesn't always happen that way. And sometimes it requires some experimentation and some combinations of things. And that's where, once you start building a collection, you have a whole lot more possibility. I have a ton of dogs that choose cedarwood with separation anxiety. I'll make an offering of several, and they'll choose cedarwood. And so then we do things like get a cedar bed, beds that have those cedar shavings in it, and put a misting spray of the cedarwood oil on the bed as well, and that sort of stuff. And it's amazing how much something just that simple can help calm them and make them feel really comfortable.
Absolutely. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah. So, all right.
I think it's
go ahead.
I was just going to say, for all of you listeners out there, if you're not using Young Living essential oils yet, contact Dana.
Yeah. What are you waiting for?
On that. Right. Because it's going to make a huge difference in everybody's life, not only your animals, but your life as well. I know a lot of people that were using essential oils well before any of the reference guides were done. And this is how they got their home started, like green cleaning with essential oils, using essential oils on the kids, using some of the nutritional supplements, and making a huge change in their daily wellness routine. So I would encourage everybody.
That just triggers a thought. We talk about the reference guides a lot, and I think everybody needs them. And honest to goodness, y'all, mine is literally right there. I can grab it in 2 seconds because I use it every single day for something. And there is so much information in it, but it's information that has been tried, that has been used. And you'll even see comments in like the animal one say notes from the field. So, and there's a detail of somebody using it for something that might not have been its original intent, but it worked, And so I love that. I love that. And getting in some of these groups, like last night on Candace's group, we started out talking about nutrition and allergies, and we wound up talking about parasites and all sorts of stuff. And it just became this fascinating discussion of how all of these things come together and what we can do to keep our dogs healthy, and how even something like a parasite can create a behavioral problem. And I mean,
exactly.
It's just amazing. So anyway, I love these conversations. I thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
And I wish you a very happy 4th of July. With
You too, Dana.
No stressed out animals, no stressed out horses,
Right.
no stressed out dogs or otherwise.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well,
Barb.
thank you. You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, these podcasts are for educational purposes only. We are not here to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any specific disease or illness. You are encouraged to do your own research and consult with your veterinarian or holistic practitioner regarding your pet's individual care. Hi, I'm Dana Brigman of the Canine Coach Carolinas. You can find me on the internet at caninecoach.dog. That's letter K, number 9, coach.dog. You can also find me on Facebook at the Canine Coach Carolinas or in our group that is designed to teach dog mamas just like you more about nutrition, essential oils, homeopathy, and other areas of natural wellness. We want you to learn all that you can to keep your dog happy, healthy, and thriving. I hope to see you in our group soon.